Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, can anyone here today tell me what the great British pastime is? Somebody must know.
Fishing?
No, actually it's tea. And we all think as tea as a British thing, but actually it originated in China. And it was given to us really by the Portuguese and the Dutch. And I shall explain how. There are many famous legends about tea, and the most prominent is about a chap called Sheng Nung. Now Sheng Nung was not an ordinary person. He was a Chinese emperor. And he had a fascination with herbs and boiling water. And he encouraged his people to boil water for hygiene purposes. And the story goes that one day he was in his garden with one of his servants. They lit a fire and they were boiling water. And it so happened that some leaves from a nearby tree flooded into the water. And after a while the water turned brown. And Sheng Nung, being a very inquisitive person, decided to taste the water. He put a ladle into the water, smelled it, and he drank the water. He enjoyed the taste. He said it was very soothing, and he loved the aroma. And ladies and gentlemen, that was the birth of the institution of tea. But they didn't call it tea, they called it kia. And up until 3 AD, tea became very, very popular in China and the surrounding areas, so they changed the name and they called it cha. And it was another 1600 years before Europeans were introduced to cha. And the first European company to taste cha was Portugal, because they manned the shipments to China and they traded with China. But they didn't bring it back in bulk. They brought it back in dribs and drabs, and only the royalty and upper class people could afford it. But at the same time, Cromwell's government collapsed and Charles II was installed as King of England. And a bit later on, he married a Portuguese princess called Catherine of Braganza. And part of her dowry was a piece of land which is now known as Mumbai, and a quantity of tea plus other things. But Catherine was addicted to tea. She loved tea. So when she came to England, eventually she introduced tea, or cha as we call it in those days, to the palace and the London high society. Now there was a company in London at the time called the East India Trading Company, and they were owned by the Dutch. And they decided to jump on the bandwagon, and they started importing tea from China in bulk. And the first cargo of tea was for £100 from Java. And as soon as it came into the country, the government put a high tax on it, so normal people couldn't afford tea. So what happened then? It encouraged organised crime to get involved, and they started smuggling. And this went on for years and years, until William Pitt the Younger became Prime Minister in 1784. And he found out that the illegal tea coming in amounted to 5 million tonnes a year. And the illegal, 7 million tonnes a year. It was that big because they couldn't control it. It's a bit like today with drugs, they cannot control it. So he decided to stop it, and what he did, he slashed the tax. He reduced the tax from 119% to 12.5% overnight. And it killed off the smuggling because everyone could afford the tea. And after that, they used to have tea auctions. And the tea auctions started from the 1700s to 1998, when it was when it was curtailed. And actually the tax was taken off tea in 1964. The reason why they curtailed the auctions is because the inventions of the tea bag, where tea is not made in the conventional way. And the inventor of the tea bag was an American called Thomas Sullivan. And that was in the early 20s. And it wasn't introduced into Britain until 1970. And from 1970 to 1980, everyone was having tea bags because it was an easier way to make tea. It was quick. Whereas the old way was brewing tea, you didn't have to brew tea. You put your tea bag in a cup and it brewed in the cup. And so, once this happened, and how this came about, Thomas Sullivan was a tea importer, and some of his customers wanted a taste of the tea they were going to buy. So then, he used to send these bags, and they got so popular that they converted them into proper tea bags. But you know, tea has very many beneficial health benefits. It helps to help the immune system with heart disease and certain cancers. And also tea is great for solving problems. If you have a problem, especially with your parents, you go to the house and say, oh, I want some advice on so-and-so. They'll say, oh, sit down, I'll put a kettle on. You'll have it. So it's a great thing for socializing, if you like. But at the end of the day, the old way of brewing is not the same as a tea bag, and it's a different way entirely. And to really know tea, you have to make a perfect cup of tea. So to make a perfect cup of tea with a tea bag, you must have freshly boiled water. Put the tea bag in the cup, and as soon as the water boils, put the water in the cup. And it seems as though it's going to explode because it seems to puff it into a ball. And that's the oxygen coming from the tea. Now you leave the tea bag and you don't touch it. You wait until it starts to sink. When it starts to sink to the bottom, you spoon it out. You don't touch it. If you want milk or tea, you put that in to your own desire. You leave it there for 30 seconds. You don't stir it. Take the tea bag out or milk it. You taste it. Pat yourselves on the back. That's a perfect cup of tea.